Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Mad Capper, and there's another video on Raid Shadow Legends, and another in our series of I Built Them, so you don't have to. Today we're talking about one of my first champions that I built to 60 of Void Epics, and one of the long-standing champions in many different facets of the game. Through power creep, this champion did lose favor quite quickly in many areas, but with the advent of level 25 dungeons, he has suddenly become a feasible option in different areas of the game, and frankly, my opinion, I think he might be feasible in other areas for those of you who may not have different options. So why don't we talk right now about him? It is Lightsworn. Lightsworn's A3 is indomitable. It places a 60% increased defense buff and a revive on death buff, all allies, for 2 turns. His A2 is Brutality. Attacks one enemy, places a 50% decreased attack debuff and a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. His A1 is Teardown. Attacks one enemy 3 times, decreases the target's turn meter by 10%. There you see Lightsworn in the Fire Knight 25 as part of the Fire Knight 25 team. With the Seer comp, he has several different skills that allow him to synergize very well with Seer. He is a little bit slower, I find, than your login reward Vizix, only because she can seem to do more damage. Now, I did have her built out for pretty high damage. He's a little bit more survivability. The good news is with this, it is a little bit more consistent, just that he doesn't die as often. That ally protect, in case you get like a resist somewhere, can put Vizix into some trouble, whereas Lightsworn with the revive does help your team in case you just, again, have some bad RNG. You still get a champion reviving off of that. But overall, one of the champions you can use in this area to supplement this sort of team. Let's take a look at the gear that I had him on in there. We'll show you, or at least talk about where he was very good in the clan boss, on over and above, of course, this right here. So here's my current Lightsworn build. We have him over indexed in defense to help him with that damage. As you can see here, let's take a look at his stats. You've got him with 42,000 HP, defense at 5493 with a crit rate of 100% crit damage of 125. Absolutely, another way to go is to relinquish some of that defense for crit damage, and the best way to do that, obviously, I have him in crit rate gloves. Switch those over to crit damage gloves, and then you just play with the rest of the stats to get him there. That 256 debuff accuracy, more than fine for anywhere you will be using him. This is not an arena champion. There are arguably some moments where he might be useful, or could have been useful in the arena for a defense, because of that revive is always nice on, say, a high resist team. The problem is most high resist teams are easily destroyed at the highest levels because most people have Yoshi. Yoshi is what I call the nuclear football. It is mutually assured destruction. All the top players have Yoshi, not to use them, But to know that they have Yoshi, in case you want to do a resist team, they can bring in Yoshi to defeat that with the increased accuracy. Now, there's other champions, right? Because he was a fusion champion, he's the most likely one on all these higher end accounts, especially paying accounts, obviously. So because of that, I don't find this champion to be that useful, even in those niche places for the arena. But he is definitely useful in dungeons because of his toolkit. The downside of his toolkit, of course, is that it is a single target set. He doesn't do an AoE damage the way some other champions do. So his skill set really only works best against bosses. That is your brutality, which of course, as we talked about, and your teardown. Also very good in the clan boss, though he has been creeped out of this just by the sheer number of champions that have been added to the game. But do not sleep on this here. It hits 3 times, which is a perfect candidate for Giant Slayer. And of course the fact that he is putting a decreased attack, which is good if you don't have an A1 decreased attack champion. You can bring him along with Fane, for example, and as long as you set them properly to intercede with each other, you can make sure that attack down is up virtually 100% of the time. Decreased speed, very good against bosses again. Single target, but it's great against the Fire Knight, as you saw here, to slow him down. It's also great against the dragon, the Ice Golem, if you need it, to slow him down a little bit. So overall, a decent toolkit as a secondary champion. Not very strong as a primary champion, except of course in the Fire Knight, where he's got the 3 hits for the shield and the decreased speed, as well as the decreased turn meter on his A1. His masteries here, as you can see how I have them, I've taken him out of support because I don't need it. So we have him here because especially we were using him in the clan boss. I'm actually going to talk a little bit about my team that I used in the clan boss prior, just so you have an idea of where you can use him in the clan boss, and you can suit that for the team that you might have that's similar. But we have here Retribution, which is good for the clan boss team. Again, it's okay. Hey, defense plus 75, it increases his damage as well, so I like that. The AoE mitigation, pretty standard. This is a very old build that I've done on him. I haven't changed it since the time I started using him in the clan boss, which was, spoiler alert, the very first video I did was with him in the clan boss. So we have, of course, Giant Slayer. I just went down here, so we went here. Full HP, I was using Roshcard, so it was an argument whether or not we had this, because we're using Cernic as well. I found that if I would change it, I'd probably go to this, because he was losing health enough that could be argued. But other than that, it was just give him some life drinker to keep his health up. Get him this, the enemy max HP is really nice. The extra 6%, because obviously clan boss will have more damage than, or more HP than him. And of course, he's going to be using this, so that's going to stack up to 10%. Essentially, that's where we went with it. For those of you who are using him earlier game, you probably won't go defense, you'll probably go support. But I still recommend the offense. That 3-hit A1 is too much to be denied with that with the Giant Slayer. Even in higher level dungeons, still going to do pretty good damage with that. So I still wouldn't recommend him to go just defense and support. I think he does enough damage that you want to be able to get him to hit the boss and make some good damage out of it. The last thing so let's go over now the clan boss, then I'll go over my final thoughts. Oh my, the very first video I ever made, an unkillable comp, and as far as I am aware, at least the first English speaking unkillable to be posted on YouTube. You see it up there, 2key 70.8. I think at its apex I had it at about 38 million before I switched to a single Rosh card, and then got better and better and better. This was literally, you saw Rosh card wasn't fully ascended. I was very low spend at the time. This was just the fact that I got these champions was a minor miracle. Rosh card was a champion I got fairly early. Sir Nick was my second void behind Ethos, I believe, but I actually hadn't built Ethos at the time. I had fallen into the trap of thinking that he was niche in arena only, and so I didn't use him. Thank you to Farting Cows for helping me see the light on the full potential of Ethos everywhere else. We're talking like, gosh, this might be 2 years ago almost. Anyway, so here you see it. And you'll see where Lightsworn, and keep in mind, this is still a completely viable, you see how old it is, there's no turn count, there's no any of that. This could go on, you know, forever. And so I had to make the decision of when to stop this fight back in the day. And it was a timed thing. It was actually a turn. The number of turns you take was like 1,500 total turns or something like that. I can't even remember what it was. But what you see here is that you've got the Doom Priest cleansing, so it was affinity friendly. You've got a Cult Brawler, so long as you use his A2 at the right time before he gets that extra turn, perfectly fine. And then you've got Lightsworn here putting up that, and we'll see why in a second. You see now that my Sir Nick actually doesn't have an unkillable. And before the advent of all these tools from Deadwood Jedi, and of course prior to Deadwood Jedi, there was a spreadsheet you plugged in, and there was a couple different iterations of that to figure out the turn meter of the clan boss. And then thankfully Deadwood put it onto a web page, or had his own version that he put onto a web page. I don't know the history of it, but if I recall, it was a concurrent thing. There was a spreadsheet out at the same time as Deadwood, but long story short, this was the answer, and this is actually many thanks to Murder Inc., who helped me figure out some of the speeds to make this work. But the whole key is that revive on death, whenever Sir Nick dies, because he's the one that's going to be left without an unkillable or block damage. When he dies, he gets revived. That stopgap's there, and it works perfectly. Now we know that you can just speed it up, but at the time we didn't have those numbers. It was all trial and error, so nobody knew the number to make them go 4-3, so that there was no actual gap in there. And as you can see, I speed it up at this point, and you'll watch he'll actually get killed there. I slow it down to where he's actually gonna get killed, but boom, he revives. It's perfectly fine. This is still a viable comp, though I venture to guess you wouldn't get a 2 key. This would probably be a 3 key in 50 turns, because like I said, this was prior to the whole 50 turn max on revive, unkillable, and block damage. But there you go. Just a little blast from the past where you could use Lightsworn. You could also, by the way, use, I believe it is Crimson Helm that has the revive on death in the exact same position as Lightsworn. And you could even use a full revive on death team, which was floating out there for a little while. So some neat, unique stuff that Lightsworn could use back in the early days. But I thought I would go over this, share this with you, just to show you that Lightsworn's still available for those who don't have the gear to speed through, and might have a Roshkard Sir Nick. And the great part is now that you've got the ability to control abilities, your Sir Nick, you can use double Sir Nick, you can use a fully booked Sir Nick, you can use double Roshkard, which actually was a problem. You had to do a floating Roshkard before, where a drifting, I think it's called a 5-4 drifting Roshkard in order to make it work. Now you don't have to. You can just say, hey, if this is up, you use it, and he'll actually put it up even if he has the block damage on himself. So needless to say, I'm not going to play through this whole thing, but I just thought it would be a neat blast in the past to show you how long Lightsworn's been a part of my life since the very first video I did. So let's go to final thoughts on this video, and then that wraps her up. Then I get to go on vacation. My final thoughts on Lightsworn are probably going to be very similar to many of the champions of his ilk. He's especially, I would say, in Sacred Order. Once upon a time, he was actually a very sought after and very strong champion. He created a niche that was needed for unkillable comps in the early days that weren't man-eater. Overall, he was a great champion to pull. You could use him in different areas, specifically the clan boss, but not only the clan boss, and he was very useful. He is one of only 2 champions that worked perfectly at the time for this. The other, I believe, being Crimson Helm with the revive on death, and it made for a very interesting but very usable 2-key Ultra Nightmare unkillable team. Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, but unfortunately for Lightsworn, this has been crept away between the sheer number of champions that have been added that do more than he does and does it better than he does, and also the fact that our clan boss knowledge, thanks to many such as Deadwood Jedi who have made public the different ways we can defeat with precision the clan boss. And so these stopgap champions are less and less needed, to the point where they're becoming virtually extinct. Ever since we learned how to do a 3-2, a 2-1, a 5-4, or whatever the drifting methods are. There's so many different ways to play around with the clan boss that you don't need this stopgap champion. You saw what I meant by stopgap champion in one of my earlier videos many moons ago, in a far galaxy far away. But he's just not as good as he used to be. And let's talk about his kit. And I think there's several ways to bring him back to relevance. First, I want to say, anytime I see a Void Affinity champion, I don't accept that they are ever not useful. I don't accept that. If they aren't, they need to be fixed. They need to be improved. And I'll tell you many ways this guy can be improved. First of all, I like this. This is very good. Increased defense, revive on death, 4-turn cooldown. You can use them in 4-3 comps and keep that up. Whatever you need to do to make this work, I think is a very good ability to have. This one here on a 3-turn cooldown is great, but there are so many champions that do this or better. So to me, my argument on this would be, if it were AoE, I think that would bring him back into huge relevance. Even if you took it down to a 5-turn bookable to 4-turn cooldown, but made this an AoE ability, I think that would make him very strong in places like Doom Tower, in places like, like we're showing in the dungeons. I just feel like there's too many champions, epic champions, that have more than this on their toolkit. Think of Fane and all the different things that Fane can do compared to this kit, and you wonder, is this really the kit that I need? And I'm not talking sweeping changes. Sure, you can put poison on his A1 and he's immediately usable anywhere, but I'm just talking using his existing kit. I feel like if this were an AoE, that would do really well. I'm not sure that's the answer. That might push him too far the other way, but it might not. It might be okay. He is a Void epic, right? But this here, the simplest change to him that would make him immediately give people at least a second thought, I guess would be the way to put it, is this decreases the target's turn meter by 10%. Period. It should do it each hit. If each hit did 10%, this champion would be really good. This champion would be really good in Ice Gold. This champion would be really good in Fire Knight. He is okay, but he's not the best option in Fire Knight right now. If this had a 30%, and even if you didn't have an allure, you could definitely make that work with him and Coldheart, or him and Lysandra, or some kind of him and Visits, right? You would have multiple turn meter decrease champions, and for those who don't want to push to 25, that 30% is absolutely amazing if it were there. So I think that the simplest change would simply to make each hit decreases the target's turn meter by 10%. And then you don't have to change the rest of his kit. Or I would like to see, to make this guy a top tier champion again, change this to an AoE on a 5-turn book with a 4-turn cooldown. But those are my thoughts on him. I like him. I think he's still usable. I don't think he's been mothballed. I just think he's been power creeped out of even niche meta, if that's a thing. So I would really like to see him improved by that respect. But those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you have Lightsworn? Do you use him? Do you feel he is useful in the game, even now with all the champions that they've added since the inception of 2 years ago when Lightsworn was added to the game? That's all I have for you today. I hope you are being kind to one another, you're staying safe, and most importantly, we'll see you in the next video.